Welcome to the Analyst dated 2nd October 2023 by Vajiram and Ravi, wherein we'll be looking into important current affairs article from both the Hindu as well as Indian Express. And the handout of this very discussion is available in the description below. Let's have a look over the table of content that we are going to discuss in this very session of Analyst. So firstly, we'll be looking into the relevance of Gandhian thoughts in today's time. Then we'll be looking into Swachh Bharat mission as cleanliness drive is going on the eve of Gandhi Jayanti today. Then we'll be looking into India-Maldives relation. Then Gandhi's image on Indian currency note, how it emerged on Indian currency notes. And lastly, we'll be looking into the aspect of protecting protected monuments. Now the first topic relates to relevance of Gandhian thoughts in today's time, and this topic pertains to this very aspect of your GS paper 1 syllabus. Let's try and understand the context first. So the context is Rajghat consensus among G20 leaders highlighted the fact that Gandhian values are relevant even today. In this background, we need to understand that what were the Gandhian ideologies? So these were the Gandhian ideologies, and we'll try to understand that how they are still relevant even in today's time one by one. So first is non-violence. Now non-violence not only implies that you are not resorting to violent means. Along with not resorting to violent means, it is also connected with the feeling of love, compassion and fraternity towards other individuals. When it comes to non-violence, it is relevant even in today's time because terrorism is on a rise. And this is because of this thing, India is now adopting winning hearts and minds strategy in the terrorism affected areas. And as India has adhered to this idea of non-violence, despite China's expansionist policy, India has been able to prevent a war with China. The same applies with Pakistan as well. As India has adhered to this idea of non-violence, despite the activities of Pakistan, India has earned a value when it comes to the international forums. Okay. Then coming to the another idea of Satyagraha. Now Satyagraha implies securing the rights through personal suffering without inflicting any harm on any other individual. When it comes to Satyagraha, it is still relevant. You can see a lot of movements like Anna Hazare movement for Lokpal and Lokayukta bill, Narmada Bachao Andolan, and the farmers' protest against farm laws were based on this idea of Satyagraha. Then self-reliance. Now when it comes to self-reliance, Gandhiji pointed out that instead of mass production, we need to move towards production by the masses. And when it comes to self-reliance idea of Mahatma Gandhi, he pointed out that we need to incentivize and re-energize our indigenous industries. We need to give emphasis to Khadi sector. And we need to give preference to the local products over the imported manufactured products, even if our local products are of inferior quality and they are dearer in price. So, self-reliance idea of Gandhi wanted to realize the idea of making the village a self-sustaining unit. And the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, which was launched by the Government of India in the background of COVID-19 pandemic, highlight the relevance of this very idea of self-reliance even in today's time. So through this Atmanirbhar scheme, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to reduce our dependence on other nations, basically the global supply chains. And we are trying to make our economy self-sufficient. Then, when it comes to education sector, Gandhiji gave Nai Talim, which basically has certain elements. Gandhiji talked about this thing that education should be provided in the mother tongue. And UNICEF has also pointed out that if a child is given education in his or her mother tongue, he is able to connect more with what is being taught to him or her in the classroom. So, imparting education in mother tongue basically enables the better cognitive development of children. And this is something that we have adopted in National Education Policy as well. So, National Education Policy states that education should be imparted in the mother tongue till the time a child reaches the grade 5, and preferably the education should be imparted in the mother tongue till grade 8. Okay. Then in the Nai Talim, Gandhiji also talked about giving vocational training, making the school students aware with the local art and culture. And this is again something which is being taken up in the national education policy. So we are trying to carry out vocational training of the students, okay, in the local art and culture which is there. So this education system of Gandhi basically talked about overall holistic development of individuals. And this is something which holds relevance even today. Then Gandhi talked about Hindu-Muslim unity time and again. And this communal harmony became relevant even in today's time in the background of communal rights that we are witnessing time and again. Recently, we witnessed it in Delhi and Haryana. And the mob lynching incidents also highlight the relevance of communal harmony. So communal harmony is required in order to make India as a united nation. Then Gandhian ideas of decentralization has been realized through 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which provided for Panchayati Raj institutions in the rural areas and municipalities for the rural areas. Then coming to the cleanliness. So when it comes to Gandhi, he gave importance to cleanliness and hygiene. He talked about eradication of open defecation, etc. And this is relevant even in today's time as we witness through Swachh Bharat mission, and today also cleanliness drive is being carried out across India. So it highlights that cleanliness is relevant even in today's time. Then last idea, sustainable development. Now Gandhiji pointed out that there is enough for every man's need but not for anyone's greed. Okay. And he talked about minimizing one's wants. And this is something which is becoming important in the today's background because climate change is a reality now. And different reports have pointed out that our window of action is closing because this is becoming a reality nowadays. So in this background, carrying out sustainable development is the need of the hour. So all this points out that Gandhian thought hold relevance even in today's time. That is all that we have to know from this very article. Let's move to the next one. Now this next article relates to Swachh Bharat mission, and this article pertains to this very aspect of your GS paper 2 syllabus. Let's try and understand the context. So the context is over 9.2 lakh sites host cleanliness drive as Honorable Prime Minister appeals for Swachhata on the eve of Gandhi Jayanti today. Now in this background, the first thing that we need to understand is what is Swachh Bharat mission. Now this mission enables the India to realize SDG goal 6.2, which basically talks about equitable access to sanitation and eradication of open defecation. So this mission was launched in 2014 and it has two components, Swachh Bharat mission Gramin and Swachh Bharat mission Urban. So this Gramin component is being implemented by Ministry of Jal Shakti and Swachh Bharat mission Urban is being implemented by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So it has two phases when it comes to Swachh Bharat mission Gramin. Phase 1 basically talked about eradication of open defecation, whereas phase 2 talked about sustaining the success that we have attained in phase 1. So in 2019 itself, all the rural areas in all the states have been declared open defecation free under this phase 1. Okay. So phase 2 basically wants to sustain this success. So it talks about ODF plus status, and it also talks about effective management of solid and liquid waste like grey water management, biodegradable waste, plastic waste, fecal sludge management, etc. When it comes to Swachh Bharat mission Urban, it also have two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. So when it comes to phase 1, it again talks about eradication of open defecation in the urban areas. It also talks about eradication of the menace of manual scavenging which is prevalent. Then it also talks about creation of residential, community toilets in residential areas where building of individual toilets is not possible. Phase 2 of Swachh Bharat mission Urban again talks about effective management of solid and liquid waste. Okay, it talks about treating the wastewater effectively before it is being discharged in the adjacent water bodies. So this is regarding the Swachh Bharat mission. Let's look at the success of Swachh Bharat mission. First is reduction in open defecation. Now, Ministry of Jal Shakti has pointed out that prior to Swachh Bharat mission, around 550 million people used to go for open defecation, and this number has come down to around 320 million. And as I told you, in 2019 itself, all the rural areas in all the states have been given the status of open defecation free. So this is a considerable achievement of Swachh Bharat mission. Then it has also led to infrastructure development. For example, Sulabh International has built around 20,000 toilets in schools and 8,500 public toilets under this Swachh Bharat mission. Then behavioral change. So prior to Swachh Bharat mission, whatever schemes were there, so they primarily focused on construction of toilets. They do not pay emphasis on attitudinal or behavioral change. This was one of the distinct feature of Swachh Bharat mission, wherein we focused upon behavioral change as well with the help of Swachhata Grahis. And this is something which is pointed out by National Annual Rural Sanitation Survey 2018 and 19, that when it comes to the Grameen areas, 93% of the households have toilets and 96% of them are using those toilets on a regular basis. This is on account of the behavioral change aspect, which was one of the major emphasis of Swachh Bharat mission. Then when it comes to health and economic benefits, Economic Survey of 2018 and 19 has pointed out that on account of Swachh Bharat mission, the instances of malaria, diarrhea, stillbirth, low birth weight has come down to a great extent. And it has led to saving of 50,000 per year in the villages which were declared open defecation free. Okay, so it has considerable health as well as economic benefits as well. Then with the success of Swachh Bharat mission, we have also been able to address the women's safety issues, because whenever women used to go out for defecating in the open, they used to witness assault. And this was something which was quite prevalent in Binda village of UP. So when this village attained the status of open defecation free, the women issues, safety issues have come down to a great extent, because now they do not have to go out in open for defecating. Then Swachh Bharat mission also had considerable impact when it comes to river contamination. Now this Benda village is around 100 kilometers away from river Ganga. So this village was also one of the focal point when it comes to Namami Gange project, wherein the government is trying to reduce the amount of excreta which is being released in the Ganga river. So as this village attained the status of open defecation free, it made a considerable dent when it comes to water quality in the adjoining water bodies, okay, and the river. So considerable improvement in the water quality was witnessed on account of Benda village attaining the open defecation free status. Then when it comes to waste segregation at source, what government is doing is, government is coming up with Swachh Sarvekshan. It is providing star rating to garbage free cities in order to promote waste segregation at source into wet waste, dry waste, okay. And what we have witnessed previously, only 41% of the wards used to witness waste segregation at source. Now 60% of the wards do waste segregation at source. So this is also a considerable success of Swachh Bharat mission. Now let's look into the issues that we are witnessing with regard to Swachh Bharat mission. The first issue being ensuring sustenance. So what we have witnessed is across the globe, for example in Bangladesh and Thailand, these countries first attain the ODF free status and they again fall back when it comes to use of toilets on a sustainable basis, okay. And that is the reason that Bangladesh took 15 years to become ODF and Thailand took 40 years to attain that status. So when it comes to Swachh Bharat mission as well, we need to continuously focus upon behavioral change, the attitudinal change. Because this demand for toilet did not come from people. It was a top-down approach. Okay. This was something that we witnessed in Kurukshetra district as well. So Kurukshetra attained ODF free status in 2018, but again in 2013, what we witness is, apart from 67% of the villages, rest again resorted to open defecation. So continuous effort in regard of attitudinal change needs to be done in order to make Swachh Bharat mission a success. Then when it comes to waste segregation, what we are witnessing is people are segregating the waste which are of high value like newspaper, plastic waste, etc. because they can directly sell that to the kabari walas and they can get the cash in return. But when it comes to the waste of low quality, they are mixed up with the wet waste that is there. And when the wet and dry waste is mixed, it becomes very difficult to generate wealth out of this waste. Okay. So in this regard, we need to learn from cities like Indore and Muzaffarpur, which are doing great when it comes to waste segregation. So they are using the wet waste for production of biogas and they are using dry waste for recycling purposes. So other cities should also learn from these cities when it comes to waste segregation at source. Then when it comes to waste processing, here also we are witnessing certain issues. Also door-to-door collection of waste is something which is being witnessed in 86% of the wards. But only 51% of 53.1 million metric tons of waste that is generated is processed. Earlier, although this waste processing was around 18%, although we have made considerable improvement in this regard as well, but more improvement needs to be done, and in this regard, we need to make sure that wet and dry waste is segregated. Because if it is segregated, then only the waste to wealth plants would be able to generate wealth out of these waste products. Okay. Then when it comes to manual scavenging, I told you that when it comes to Swachh Bharat Mission Urban, one of its goal was to address this menace of manual scavenging. But according to Social Justice Ministry report, in this year only, the Social Justice Ministry pointed out that only 66% of the districts in country are free of manual scavenging. So this implies that we have not been able to eradicate this menace of manual scavenging, which is still prevalent in certain districts of our country. Then there are construction issues as well. So what happens is the construction of toilet is not done by individual, rather they are done by contractors. So they use low quality of products, on account of which we are witnessing construction issues. And the 51st report by Parliamentary Standing Committee has also pointed out that there are issues with regard to the construction and durability of the toilets which are being built under the Swachh Bharat mission. Why it is so? Because it has been pointed out in this very report that it might happen that after few years, the villages would again resort to open defecation, because the durability of the toilets which are being built under the Swachh Bharat mission is a question, because the septic tanks might get filled up very early and it would make those toilets of no use, and again we would witness a rise in the menace of manual scavenging. So in this regard, this Parliamentary Standing Committee pointed out that we need to focus upon the quality and durability of the construction of the toilets, okay, so that the community could keep on using the toilets on a sustainable basis. Now after we have discussed the issues, let's just conclude that what needs to be done in order to make Swachh Bharat mission a success. You can draw the conclusion from the issues that we have discussed right now. So first thing that we need to do is we need to ensure waste segregation at source, so that we could generate wealth out of the waste. So the waste needs to be segregated in wet and dry waste. So that wet waste could be used for production of biogas and dry waste could again be used for recycling purposes. Then we need to enhance waste processing. So we need to enhance the efficiency of waste to wealth plants. Then we need to make sure that the construction issues with regard to the toilets which are built under the Swachh Bharat mission are addressed. So we need to make sure that the toilets which are being built, better material is used for their construction and they are durable as well, so that the community continue to use it on a sustainable basis. And lastly, we need a collaborative approach. So the government needs to collaborate with the civil society organization and private players as well in order to develop adequate infrastructure that is required under this mission, and we need the cooperation from civil society in order to make sure that the behavioral change is continuing on a sustainable basis, and through this collaborative approach we can make it a Jan Andolan. Okay, so in order to make this Swachh Bharat mission a Jan Andolan, we need to adopt a collaborative approach. That is all that we have to make note of from this very topic. Let's move to the next topic. Now, this next topic is related to India-Maldives relation, and this topic pertains to this very aspect of your GS paper 2 syllabus. We also have a previous year question in this regard. So, after listening to this very discussion, please try and attempt this very question. Now, what is the context? So, context is Mohammed Muizzu was elected as the new president of Maldives as he beat the India-friendly incumbent Ibrahim Mohammed Solih. Now, in this regard, first let's look into the historical background of India-Maldives relation. So, India was one of the first nations to recognize Maldives as an independent state right after its independence, and we were the first to develop diplomatic relation with Maldives. So, when it comes to India-Maldives relation, we share good relation in the cultural domain, in the economic domain, etc. And India was the first to provide assistance to Maldives during the 2004 tsunami incident, and we also provided assistance to Maldives in 2014 when Maldives was witnessing a water crisis. When it comes to India-Maldives, there was some issue with regard to Minicoy Island, but later on with a treaty, Maritime Boundary Treaty, which was signed in 1976, Maldives finally recognized Minicoy to be an integral part of India. But when it comes to India-Maldives relation witnessed a downturn when Abdullah Yameen was the president of Maldives. That was during the period of 2013 and 18. Because Abdullah Yameen followed a pro-China approach, an India out campaign. So, he signed a free trade agreement with China, he got loans from China for developing a lot of infrastructure projects, and he carried out a India out campaign. So, this is regarding the historical background of India-Maldives relation. Let's try and understand that why Maldives is so significant for India. First reason is its geographical location. So, when it comes to Maldives, it is located at the important international sea lines of communication, and it is like a toll gate between the choke points in the Western Indian Ocean and Eastern Indian Ocean. So, here we have Gulf of Aden, here we have Strait of Hormuz, and here we have Strait of Malacca. So, it is like a toll gate between these choke points. So, what are choke points? Choke points are narrow channels which have high traffic on account of their strategic location, and they are very important when it comes to the world trade. So, Maldives is very important for India because it acts like a toll gate between the choke points which we have in the Western Indian Ocean and the Eastern Indian Ocean. Then, it also have economic significance because Maldives lies at the crossroad of important sea lines of communication. And when it comes to India, 97% by volume when it comes to India's international trade passes through this region, and 75% of value when it comes to India international trade passes through this very region. Then Maldives is also having strategic significance in the background of Chinese expansionist policy when it comes to the Indian Ocean region. So, we need the cooperation of Maldives in order to secure India's security interest. Then, when it comes to India diaspora, so a lot of Indian individuals are working in Maldives in the tourism sector, in the education, health sector, etc. So, on account of these reasons, Maldives is quite significant to India. Now, let's look into the areas of cooperation when it comes to the two nations. In the domain of maritime security, Maldives is cooperating with India as well as Sri Lanka in order to address the maritime issues like illicit traffic, piracy, unregulated fishing, etc. And India and Maldives have tried to strengthen their engagement when it comes to maritime domain awareness as well as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. When it comes to military cooperation, India has given landing assault crafts to Maldives. India has also provided $50 million line of credit to Maldives for multiple defense related projects. And the two nations have also resolved to strengthen their defense cooperation by signing this comprehensive action plan for defense in 2016 in order to consolidate their military relation. When it comes to the economic relation, previously India was the fourth largest trading partner of Maldives in 2018, but now it has become the second largest trading partner of Maldives. And when it comes to bilateral trade, it has witnessed a 31% rise in 2021 as compared to 2020. India has again provided $500 million US dollar grants for maritime connectivity to Maldives. When it comes to the infrastructure aspect, India is one of the partner when it comes to development of Greater Malay Connectivity Project, which is one of the largest infrastructure projects in Maldives region. And India is also providing support when it comes to the airport redevelopment project and Hani Madho International Airport. Then humanitarian assistance is also provided by India. So in 2019, India provided assistance for high impact community development program under which various social development program projects would be undertaken. India also provided Covishield vaccines in the background of COVID-19 pandemic, and India also helped Maldives in developing this Indira Gandhi Memorial Hospital, which is also one of the important or the larger hospital in the Maldives region. In the domain of education and technology also, India is providing assistance to Maldives in the development of National Knowledge Network, which would basically strengthen the collaboration between the academic and the research institutions in the Maldives. So, these are the areas of cooperation when it comes to India and Maldives. What are the challenges in the relationship between India and Maldives? So, one is political instability. So, as I've told you, Abdullah Yameen carried out India Out campaign, and when the Ibrahim Mohammed Soleh became the president, so he became more closer to India. So, what we witness is the domestic politics decide the relation between India and Maldives, which is not a good sign. So, when domestic politics determine relation between two nations, so constructive and sustained relationship gets impacted. This is something which is a challenge that we are witnessing between India and Maldives as well. Then, another issue is radicalization. So, a lot of Maldives citizens are joining Islamic State. So, the Maldives citizens who are joining the terrorist organization in Pakistan has increased to a great extent. And the experts have pointed out that the terrorist organizations of Pakistan might use Maldives to attack Indian assets, okay, and to hamper the India's interest by using Maldives. Then, Chinese influence. So, when it comes to Maldives, it is an important part of Chinese string of pearls, and as Maldives allowed docking of Chinese submarines at its ports, this raised security implications for India. Then, there are certain issues in economic cooperation as well, because we do not have a free trade agreement with Maldives, and at times it has been found out that Maldives government favors Chinese companies over the Indian ones when it comes to giving the companies the opportunity to develop infrastructure projects in Maldives. So, it favors the Chinese companies as compared to the Indian ones. Then, at times the Indians' effort are misunderstood. For example, UTF Harbour project, which was being developed with India's assistance in the Maldives, was to maintain a coast guard harbour and dockyard. But the people misunderstood this very project, that it would enable India to use this UTF Harbour project to develop India's naval base. Now, in this regard, we need to understand is what needs to be done in order to improve India-Maldives relation. First is, India should increase developmental assistance further in order to get the goodwill of the people of Maldives. This would help India to build better relation with Maldives. Then we need to do perception management. So, we need to specially have talks with the political parties which are in opposition as well when it comes to Maldives, in order to make them aware that all these infrastructure projects that we are helping you to develop, that is basically for the goodwill of the people and for the betterment of your economy. And in this regard, Indian High Commission can play a major role when it comes to perception management, in order to get the goodwill of the different political parties which are there, in order to earn the goodwill of the people of Maldives as well. Then, when it comes to India, we cannot stop China from entering the Maldives, but what we can do is we can remain vigilant, and we need to time and again convey our security concerns with regard to China to the Maldives government as well. Then the two nations can also cooperate on maritime as well as climate issues. That is all that we have to note down with regard to this topic. Let's move to the next one. Now this next topic relates to Gandhi's image on India currency notes, and this topic relates to this aspect of your prelim syllabus. Let's try and understand the context. So what is the context? So the context is, on the eve of Gandhi Jayanti, let's understand how the image of Gandhiji started to appear on Indian currency notes. In this regard, the first thing that we need to understand is, what is a legal tender? So legal tender or fiat money are basically such money which do not have any intrinsic value, like we have in case of gold or silver coins. Okay, but these are legal tender. Why? Because no citizen of India can refuse to settle any of the transaction with these legal tender notes. Okay, then let's try and understand that how the image of Gandhiji started to appear on Indian currency note. So what comes to our mind is, since Gandhiji was considered to be the father of the nation, he would be the obvious choice to appear on Indian currency note. But you will be astonished to know that it was only in 1996 that Gandhi image became permanent on Indian currency notes. And who for the first time referred Gandhiji as father of nation? That was Subhash Chandra Bose. So the image that you see on Indian currency notes right now, that image was taken in 1946. But who was the photographer? That is unknown. And in that image, Gandhiji was standing with the British politician, that is Lord Frederick William Patrick Lawrence. And who has actually chosen this image? That is also not clear. But when it comes to the designing of Indian currency note, that responsibility rests with Department of Currency Management of RBI, which gives the designs to the RBI and to the central government, which further approves the designing of Indian banknotes. Then, when did Gandhi first appeared on Indian currency notes? So in 1969, in order to commemorate 100th birth anniversary of Gandhi, a special series of banknotes were issued by the central government. In that, Gandhiji was, seen, and in the background there was Sevagram Ashram. And again in 1987, a series of 500 notes were issued by the government featuring Gandhi. So the question arises that who appeared before Gandhi on Indian banknotes? So it was the King George VI which appeared on Indian banknotes. But when in 1949, Indian government issued the banknotes of 1 diminution, then in the watermark area, King George V was replaced with lion capital of Ashoka pillar at Sarnath. And in 1950, when government issued denomination of higher value like 2, 5, 20, 10, 100, etc. So in that, in the watermark area, we had lion capital. Over a period of time, the images at the bank note, at the back of the banknotes, they kept on changing. So we had farm mechanization on rupee 5 denomination note, Aryabhatta satellite was shown on rupee 2nd denominated note, and Konark wheel was depicted in bank note of denomination 20. Okay, so the image which was there at the back of the bank note kept on changing in 1970s and 1980s. Okay, then the last thing that we need to understand is when Gandhi portrait featured on every banknote. So as I have told you, it was in 1996 when Gandhiji's image on Indian bank currency notes became a permanent feature. And why this decision was taken by the government? Because there was development of reprographic techniques. So great advancement was witnessed in the reprographic techniques like digital printing, scanning, photography, Xerox, etc. This enables the forging of innate objects. So the RBI thought that forging of innate objects is easier as compared to a human figure. So in this background, Gandhiji's image became a permanent feature when it comes to Indian currency notes. That is all that we have to make note of from this very topic. Let's move to the last topic. Now this last topic pertains to the issue of protecting protected monuments, and this topic pertains to this very aspect of my GS paper 1 syllabus. What is the context? So the context is the department related standing committee on transport, tourism and culture has recommended pruning the list of centrally protected monuments. So now in this regard, the first thing that we need to understand is what are parliamentary committees. So when it comes to Indian constitution, it make mention of parliamentary committee, but we do not have a specific provision in the Indian constitution which deals with functioning, composition and tenure of parliamentary committees. So all these aspects are regulated by the rules of respective houses. So what are parliamentary committees? So parliamentary committees are one which are appointed by the house itself or whose members are nominated by the presiding officers of the concerned house, who work under the direction of the presiding officers of the concerned house, who submit their report either to the house or to the presiding officer of the concerned house, and whose secretariat is provided by Lok Sabha or by the Rajya Sabha. So such committees are referred as parliamentary committees. Now, another thing that we need to make note of is regarding the Archaeological Survey of India. Now, the Archaeological Survey of India is the primary organization for archaeological researches and protection of the cultural heritage of the country. It works under the aegis of Union Minister of Culture. Its headquarters is situated at New Delhi and it was established in 1861 by Alexander Cunningham. It regulates all the archaeological activities as per the provisions of Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958, and it also regulates the Antiquities and Art Treasure Act 1972. Now, let's look into what the report actually suggested with regard to centrally protected monuments. Now, the report pointed out that we need to, trim down the list of centrally protected monuments because many of these 3,691 monuments are minor monuments which do not have any national importance. For example, 75 graves of colonial officials or soldiers are also there included in the centrally protected monuments list, which do not have any national importance or structural significance as well. So in this regard, the report pointed out that we need to trim down this centrally protected monuments list. Now, what were the reasons on account of which this report pointed out that we need to denotify certain monuments from this centrally protected monuments list? The reason being, such minor monuments which are not of national importance, which do not have structural importance as well, they are also getting the same level of importance which is provided to cherished monuments like Taj Mahal, Red Fort, etc. Another reason being, now since all such monuments are included in the centrally protected monuments, so the Archaeological Survey of India has to spend its annual budget on all of these monuments which are included in centrally protected monuments list. And the report basically wants the Archaeological Survey of India to focus upon the major monuments. Okay. Then whenever a monument is notified under this Ancient Monument and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958, so 100 meter across these monuments are prohibited and 300 meter across these monuments activities are regulated. So when such minor monuments are also included in centrally protected monuments list, so this severely impacts the infrastructure and real estate development around these monuments. So on account of these reasons, the committee has recommended denotifying of such minor monuments that are there. Then another thing that we need to understand is, can monuments be dropped from the protected list? So it can be done if we amend the ancient monuments and archaeological sites and Remain Act 1958. Because according to this act, whatever site or whatever object is more than 100 years, it would be protected under this act by Archaeological Survey of India. So, if we want to denotify certain monuments, we need to make amendments in this very act and we need to change the meaning of monuments and national importance. Experts have pointed out that instead of completely removing such monuments from the centrally protected monuments list, what we can do is we can give this responsibility of upkeep and maintenance of such monuments to the state and to the district authorities. Okay. Then the report also pointed out certain issues with regard to the functioning of Archaeological Survey of India. So it pointed out that out of 531 monuments which were encroached, from only 9 sites, encroachment was removed since 2015. And it also pointed out that Archaeological Survey of India should provide requisite support to those individuals and to those families who are getting impacted on account of removal of encroachment from the monuments, so that such families and individuals could transition towards adequate means of livelihood. Then it also pointed out that Archaeological Survey of India should use advanced technology like LIDAR, 3D scanning and ground penetrating radar in order to ensure accuracy and efficiency of the evacuation or excavation that Archaeological Survey of India is carrying out. Report also pointed out that let's separate Archaeological Survey of India and create 2 units, that is Archaeological Survey of India and India Heritage Development Corporation, so that Archaeological Survey of India could focus upon its core function, that is excavation and exploration and maintenance of historical sites that are there, heritage sites that are there. And this India Heritage Development Corporation would be focusing on other aspects like the ticket collection, issuing licenses, maintaining effective sound and light system across the monuments, etc. And when it comes to the monument mitras, the report pointed out that out of the 24 agreements which were signed with the private parties under Adopt a Heritage Scheme, what we witness is that only 4 of these agreements were effective. Why it was so? Because these private parties lack effective experience when it comes to maintenance of the historical monuments and sites that are there. So what is this Adopt a Heritage Scheme? So in this, the private players were entering into an agreement with the government, and in that, through those agreements, they were supposed to provide funds under corporate social responsibility, and those funds would be used for creating world-class tourism facilities in such historical monuments and sites. Okay, tourism facilities like enabling ease of access for Divyangs, senior citizens, effective light and sound management, drinking water, cleanliness, etc., so that we can make these monuments and sites an important tourist destination. That is all that we have to know from this very topic. Thank you for listening to this very discussion and all the very best for your preparation.